Our next speaker is a nationally recognized keynote speaker and executive coach to top leaders and teams across a broad range of industries. Liz has become a thought leader in the industry. She delivers keynotes to top conferences and companies nationwide, including Microsoft, IBM, and Sotheby's International Realty. Her ability to identify trends in human behavior also makes her a sought-after expert in the media. Her advice has been featured in books, podcasts, business magazines, newspapers, including Fast Company, The Washington Post, and Business News Daily, along with her career advice column in Marie Claire. Please help me welcome to the stage someone who is certainly a familiar face to us at One Sotheby's and an incredible person, an amazing friend, Liz Bentley.
Kind introduction, and it is so great to be here and see everybody in person again and wear real shoes. I haven't worn real shoes on stage in a while, so it's really nice to be here. And I was really happy when Mai called me and asked me to come speak. And when she did, I sat down and I thought, okay, what do I really want to talk about? And I reflected back on the last 2 years and what everyone's been through. And I thought a little more about what I've been hearing people talk about in the last 6 months. And I thought, what can I talk about here that's going to help people really, work hard through the rest of 2022, the next 9 to 10 months, but also propel them forward for the years to come ahead. And what I feel like what we really need to tackle right now. So I decided to talk about the fears that can fuel you. The 3 fears I see out there that if you lean into and have, they will actually push you forward through almost anything and be great at pushing you to be the best you can be in your life. And fear is a really interesting thing. It's actually a very powerful emotion. And what I see about fear is that it unconsciously drives most of our behaviors, our decisions, and our actions. And the key word in that sentence is unconsciously. See, what's funny about fear is we would usually say, is a negative emotion, right? And so we want to believe that our behaviors, our decisions, and our actions are driven by positive emotions, by the desire to be really good people, to be great agents, to be good at our job, at our life, at our parenting, inside our family, good humanitarians, good inside our community, whatever it is. And the good news is that is what drives most of your behaviors, decisions, and actions. But what I see in coaching, and in coaching a lot of different people across many industries, is that when they get stuck, when they struggle, it's usually a fear that is sabotaging them. And what's interesting about that is it's often a subconscious fear that they're not aware of, that is actually sabotaging their movement forward. So let me give you an example of that. And this is one I see all the time. I'll have a client who needs to give someone in their life feedback. It could be a colleague, it could be an assistant, it could be someone who works for them in any capacity, it could even be a friend. But they need to give that person feedback, and they're uncomfortable doing it. Let's face it, most of us are uncomfortable giving tough feedback. And so they're avoiding it, they're kind of dancing around it, and then they start creating a storyline where they say, well, I really don't want to give them the feedback because I think it would be hurtful, it would be unkind, I don't think they could handle it, I think it would be too hard on them, and they make all kinds of excuses, and they tell them a positive story about themselves on why they're actually not doing it. But as time goes on, the situation is getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's becoming more and more obvious that they just need to give this feedback, but they can't do it. And what we find, again, when we're stuck, when we're getting sabotaged, it's often a fear. And in this case, it's usually the fear of not being liked. The most of us want to be seen as good people. We want to be liked. And we're afraid if we give that feedback, they're going to get mad at us. And so we get stuck around it. Another really obvious one I see all the time is delegating. I constantly hear people talk about, oh, I'm not really good at delegating, I'm a perfectionist, I don't like asking other people to do things, it's easier for me to just do it right now because I can do it really quickly, and so on and so forth. But as we see, if you're not delegating, eventually you can't go up, you can't do more, right? And then we make the excuse, that it's just because, we like doing it for ourselves. But often what I find, the fear underneath not delegating, is that if we stop doing all the easy things on our to-do list, the stuff that we know how to do, then we have to go to those hard things, those things that we have at the end of our to-do list that we always run out of time for. And that's stuff like building our talent pipeline or evaluating our marketing or our social media or something that we're really actually just afraid of doing. So like I said, often I see that fear can be a huge driver in sabotaging us. But today what I want to talk about is how we can have fears that actually push us forward. Because if fear is going to drive us, let's have really good ones that can actually change our life and put us into a better place. So the first fear I want to talk about is the fear of stagnation. I want you to be terrified of stagnating. I want you to actually be terrified of not growing and not pushing yourself forward. Because fearing stagnation is a really good thing. Right now, we are living in a world where the word languishing has become one of the most popular words in leadership development. It was coined, I should say, by a sociologist named Corey Keyes. And it means that you're feeling numb, you're not feeling motivated, you've burned out, and basically that you've gotten out of flow, right? And a lot of people can struggle in languishing right now, which is why it's become a popular word. But again, if we fear stagnation, we can push out of it. And here's how we do it. First, I want you to think about constantly growing your intelligence. So what's interesting about intelligence is the research shows that by the age of 10, we have decided whether we are smart or dumb. We have made a full evaluation on our intellectual capacity and our brain competency, and we spend usually the rest of our life proving that to be true. And so I see this showing up all the time in adults, that there are fears around their intelligence, even if they've decided that they are smart, even if they decided that they are very competent, but those fears around their intelligence are starting to sabotage them. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One, I had a client that I was talking to recently, and I could kind of tell he was struggling around his intelligence. And he said to me, he was saying to me, this person is smart, and this person is smart, and this person is so smart. So I said, okay, well, why don't you describe to me, what does an intelligent person do? How do you even define intelligence? Because to me, intelligence, shows up in so many different ways. And he said, well, and this person is, my client in this case happens to be about 42 years old and is very successful. And he said, well, Liz, intelligent people read a lot of books and they can recite all those facts back to you. They're really good at reciting facts, reading books, and telling you, just acting smart, being very confident in the way that they do that. And I said, okay, that's, a form of intelligence, I guess. What else? What else is a form of intelligence? And he said, no, that's pretty much it. That's what people do. So I said, okay, so do you do that? Is that what you do? Do you read books and recite them back? And he said, oh, no. I'm dyslexic. I don't like reading books. I can never get through a book. I don't do that at all. So I said, so I guess you don't see yourself as intelligent. And he said, oh, he had no idea. He said, no, I'm intelligent. I think I'm intelligent. But it was the first time he got to the opening that he didn't realize that fear was sabotaging him. So what I would push you to do is not decide on your intelligence. Whatever you decided at age 10, even if you decided at age 10 that you were brilliant, let go of that decision and instead just decide to grow your intelligence. Because it's something that you can constantly grow and that you need to be constantly growing because the world around you is constantly growing. So you need to be growing your intelligence on the way you manage your time, on the way you develop your processes, on the way that you negotiate and look at your business. You need to be developing your intelligence around marketing, around social media, around navigating difficult personalities. Your intelligence is endless, so don't make a decision on where you are with it. The next thing is to seek a new perspective. I can't tell you how often we get clients who can only see one dimension of their life. So most of our life basically is every day doing all of our good habits and bad habits the same way, again and again. We put in the same input, we get the same output. Now in this room, I know that there are a lot of people who work very, very hard in their careers. But also in this room, everyone in this room gets very different results from that hard work, okay? And no matter where you are in that results, if you are seeking a new perspective on what you are doing, you will always be able to make those results grow. So what happens in our life is we have a tendency to look at our life from the inside out instead of the outside in. But it's very easier for other people to look at our lives from the outside. So when we seek other opinions, when we seek feedback, when we study what other people are doing and the way that they run their business, whether it's other agents that live near you or live far away from you or that you follow on social media, or even people who have other business models in other industries that you can learn from, the more you can seek a new perspective, the more you can grow and not be stagnant. And last in this category is to embrace challenge. So the thing about life that's interesting is that none of us like to get uncomfortable because it's hard. We always seek comfort. And the second things that start to get hard, we want to go seek something that's more comfortable because it feels good. And we've been told over and over again that we should be happy and that we should seek things that are easier. And even though we read words like resilience and grit, those things all sound good for other people. Often when we're in it, we're seeking how to make it easier and not stay in the challenge and stay in the discomfort. So what I encourage people to do in this case is to be patient. To be patient because in order to stay in growth and not be in stagnation, we have to be patient. We have to let things grow. We have to remain in discomfort and embrace the challenges in front of us. And we also have to have a long-term perspective and view of our life. And sometimes a long-term view is only a couple of weeks or months, but sometimes a long-term view is a couple of years. So I have a client I'm coaching right now, and she works in an investment bank. And she's very successful. She's one of the top people in her industry, but she's on what's called the non-production side, which means she's more in support and in sales and marketing, not in sales. So she's young. She's 38 years old, and she's already at the top of her career. She's already at the top of the pay scale. She's doing really well by all counts. When I was coaching her, I said to her, why don't you consider going over to the production side, which is what is considered sales? And I said, because if you go to production, first of all, you can quadruple your income. I mean, she's going from a high six-figure salary. She could almost go to an eight-figure salary. I said, you can have tons of responsibility. There's so much growth. There's so much possibility. There's so many places you could go work. There's such a large runway in front of you to do that. And she said to me, wow, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I get it, but the reality is that that's going to take me 3 years. That's probably going to take me about 3 years. She's 38. I'm like, yes, and in 3 years, you will be 41. You're going to risk stagnation for 3 years? Because I said, now visualize, where do you think you'll be at the age 45 in this position? So we got to embrace that challenge in order to avoid stagnation. If you fear stagnation, you will push through these things. The next thing I want you to fear, which is a big one right now, is the loss of connection, okay? So one of the things we found is connection and social connections have become a big problem that I've seen lately all around us. And so in the research, one of the things they've said is that if you have poor social connections, or having poor social connections, is worse than having obesity, than smoking, and then having high blood pressure. On the contrary, strong social connections increases your longevity by 50%, strengthens your immune system, lowers your rates of depression and anxiety, and builds self-esteem. But social connection is actually in a lot of danger right now. In 1985, they did a study where they asked individuals, how many close friends or close confidants do you have? And the way they defined that was somebody that you would tell something deeply personal to. And most people came back saying they had three close confidants. But by 2004, that number had dropped to 1. And 25% of the people said they didn't have any, okay? By 2019, 3 to 5 people reported feeling lonely. And that number has increased dramatically post-pandemic. The other thing they found in the research of social connection is that it's not just about having family, but that actually friends are really, really important. In 2017, a man named William Chopek, a professor at Michigan State University, did a study on relationships. He studied 270,000 people across 100 countries. And he found that friends were absolutely as important, if not more important, than family. He found that people who had strained friendship had a higher likelihood of chronic illness. But if having a strained marriage or a strained relationship with children did not have a higher case of chronic illness. He found that people who had good friends were happier, and then people who had both good friends and family were the happiest with the best health. The other thing that he found is that as people aged, those relationships became even more important than ever, and that people who had the better relationships had much more longevity and happy lives. So why? Why is this the case? Mostly because they find that in friendships are easier, more relaxing, more easygoing. Family relationships, which are also obviously very important, can be more obligatory and sometimes monotonous and boring. But obviously both can be great. The most important thing is getting into those social connections and how they fuel your whole life. So why have we lost so much in social connections? Number one, the biggest thing I see is judgment. I see people judging each other so much. Social media has made this such a big problem, but I see it all over, and that judgment is shutting people down. In judgment, we create tons of insecurity. Ultimately, I see people judging someone else so that they don't judge them, or judging someone because that person poked an insecurity inside of them that made them feel uncomfortable. It's so much better to be in a place where we can be judgment-free and just take care of those insecurities so we can keep those connections going on, especially in a place like this where you have so much opportunity for connection just right now. The other thing that I find interesting is that as I look back, when I was writing this presentation, I was looking back over my life and the friends that I've made, as I thought of the people that I know who really never want to ever talk badly about anyone, and it's one of their personal policies. And when you're around them, it's just so nice and pleasant because the conversation is deep, it's interesting, you know, it always feels like a great connection, and there's never has that negative energy in it. So stopping judging can make a huge, huge difference. And the next thing is cherishing and creating long-term relationships. So long-term relationships are really important because you've created memories with someone else that you carry throughout all of your life. And I remember my mom telling me this story. My mom's 88, but when she was in her young 80s, she went back to one of her college reunions. And she was staying in the dorm with one of her best friends from college years, which at that point was many, many years ago. And she was telling me this story about how they were getting ready to go to an event. And she said, you know, we were getting ready and we were just so interested in the conversation we were having that we completely stripped down naked in front of each other and then got redressed. And she said, and look at me, no one wants to see this body. And I said, this is true. And she said, but we were just, I did say, this is true, Mom, no one wants to see that body. But I don't think, but she said, you know, we're just so connected and close to each other. She said, there are very few people I could do that with. But it was just completely unconscious. So those deep connections and those long-term friendships are really important. And the other thing is you can make them now. Because you can make a friendship right now that will go 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And what I see the struggle with there is forgiveness. Because I find that people have fights and disagreements and have a problem. And instead of just moving over it and forgiving each other so that you can keep that relationship and keep that connection and have that feeling and that warm feeling with someone, they let it go. So I think it's really important to be in a place of forgiveness. And back to the judging piece, recognizing that, you know, look, people have weaknesses. And the good news is you're not here to fix them. You're really only here to fix your own. So last is looking for new connections, okay? And constantly seeking new connections. And I see the biggest problem with seeking new connections is Netflix. People have gotten so into watching their television shows and all the programs that they've become addicted to that they're constantly measuring, well, should I go meet that person for a drink, or should I go to that event, or should I just stay home and watch this great show? And instead, they're making relationships with people who don't exactly exist, and characters that don't exist in life, and getting more entertained by people who've been fabricated on a television set or a movie set or whatever it was, than actually making real connections with people they can meet right in front of them. And the importance of doing that, especially in this business, but beyond even this business, for your own life, your own health, your own wellness, period. So right before I came here, I was in LA doing a project, and I was sitting at dinner next to someone who had grown up on a farm. And I may never meet him again, but all night he was talking to me about growing up on a farm. And it was so incredibly interesting. And I have never met anyone who cared so much about John Deere products. And I thought, there is no machinery in my life that I care about nearly as much as this man cares about these John Deere products. I almost want to go out and buy a tractor. I got so interested in it. So, but all of these connections, I think, make such a difference in our life. They make us more interesting. They make us more fun. They make us easier to connect to ourselves. And they grow our brain, right? So these connections are really important, and important not to lose track of. Okay, and last is not to lose faith. Be afraid of losing faith. Okay, so for starters, faith happens, number one, from believing in yourself. And where I see this happen the most, where I see this start, is I see it in kids all the time. When you have kids and you get them into sports and they're playing sports, and all of a sudden your kid's getting benched. And I hear the parents say, that coach doesn't see the potential in my daughter or my son. They just don't see the potential in them. And you think about this in life. Think about how often you're in a position where you feel like a client doesn't see your potential, where your manager is not seeing your potential, where the other agent isn't seeing your potential. And no matter where you are in the business, you could be even more at the top of the game, let's say, but one of the other top agents, someone who's even better than you, is not seeing your potential. And what's interesting to me in coaching is that I see a lot all the adult issues, and then when I'm in the parenting world, I can see, oh, that's where that started. And then it manifested into here, right? So the truth is, the only person who's got to see your potential is you. You are the only person who has to see your own potential. You have to be able to believe in yourself. And most importantly, you have to be able to believe in yourself when no one else does. Because a lot of times in life, not everyone is going to believe in you, and the only driving factor can be yourself. So having that faith is so incredibly important. And the other piece in that is no one can really see your true potential but you. You're the only one who knows what you're really capable of. So it's critical that you keep that belief system in yourself no matter what is happening. The other thing that's important in faith is being able to have the faith to see abundance over scarcity. Scarcity is a really big fear for people. And when I see people diving into the fear of scarcity, they start having really bad behavior. That's when people start to shade the truth, maybe manipulate the facts, hide information, stab someone in the back, do something that they're really not proud of, and it's because they're afraid. They're afraid there isn't going to be enough. So if fear is going to drive you, be driven around the belief that there's abundance, right? That there's going to be more, that there's going to be enough, right? And have the faith that there is going to be enough for you and everyone so that you can always do the right thing, so that you can have your fear drive you into the right place instead of the wrong, okay? And last is to be able to live in uncertainty. And, living in uncertainty, the way I define that, is that it's a place between where you are now and where you'd like to go, but you're not sure you're going to get there. There's a lot of times in life that we have, in order to grow, in order to go to the next level, in order to stay out of stagnation and to be constantly growing, we have to be able to live in a place that we're unsure of because we don't know the answers yet. And what I see is that often when people get into uncertainty because it's so uncomfortable, they want to make a quick decision. No, I'm not going to go. Yes, I am going to go. I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to stop trying. I'm not going to do it any longer because the uncertainty is so uncomfortable. But if we don't have the faith to live in uncertainty, to live in that space, then we can't grow into our full potential. We can't grow to that place that we're capable of. So one of the ways I describe this a lot in my work is that often when we have a place we want to go, maybe even a problem or a challenge we're up against, and we're in one spot and we're trying to get to the other, but we're not sure we're going to get there. I call it playing the chessboard. That we've got to get on the chessboard and we've got to start making moves. And we're not sure what's going to work, and we're not sure we're going to, but we know we want to get to that queen. And usually most of my clients want to basically run down the chessboard and punch the queen in the face. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. That's not allowed, because that's not how chess works. But that's what they want to do, and that's going to fail because they want that decision. They want to know it's going to happen. They want to just plow through and get it done, or whatever it is. Or they just don't even want to start the game. But instead, I say, no, we got to play the whole board. We got to make all the moves. There are going to be some moves that are good. There are going to be some moves that are bad. But we got to stay in the game and keep our eye on the prize until we keep moving our way, and hopefully we get there. And what I see is that when people have faith, they're more willing to let go of the result and just play the best game they can, making each move as they go. And when they have the ability to have that kind of faith, they most often get exactly where they're hoping to be. But it takes faith to let go of that, to let go of the anxiety of wanting to know, to let go of the anxiety of being unsure, just to stay in that one place and keep being the best you can be. Okay? Last but not least, I know you guys have heard a lot of really amazing things today, and you've had some incredible speakers, and you've gotten some great feedback. And one of the most important things I can say is just continue to be authentic. As my kids would say, you do you, right? Is that you have to really be who you are, because while you can grow from this, you're always just growing yourself. You can't turn into anyone else, and that's never the objective. So be in your authentic self. Be the best version of who you can be with all the information that you've got today, and push yourself forward. So just to have a quick review. Refuse to be stagnant. You'll be so grateful if you refuse to be stagnant, okay? Create and keep meaningful connections, because it's going to give you a lot of great longevity and a great long life. So start working on it right now. And I want to say I'm very concerned. This is probably one of the ones I am the most concerned about from all the people that I talk to. And last but not least, always have faith, because faith will get you through everything, okay? So thanks, you guys. Thanks so much. Thank you.